Welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is the podcast where we take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Patrick, and with me as always are my co-hosts, Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant.
You had a little extra. Hello.
It was very dramatic.
I try to change up my delivery every now and then.
Have you been off seeing some of the summertime movies?
You know, I'm so far behind on all my movie watching. Ever since I had a baby, I don't get out as much. Like, there was a time when I was going almost once a week to see whatever new movie came out that week. And now it's like I've got a list of movies that I haven't watched.
I'm so far removed from that particular environment. I don't remember the last time I watched more than one movie in a month.
We used to go all the time.
I'm looking forward to that, when the kids maybe move out eventually. I would love to see more movies, but I feel so far behind on most everything. That and TV shows too, so enjoy it when you guys talk about it.
I think we've kind of just settled more on the TV shows and even going to the movies. I mean, COVID areas really spoiled us about having stuff online.
Plus, all the streaming services have gotten a lot better than they used to be.
I just love the environment, the atmosphere of big screen, dark room, smell of popcorn. It's just
recliners.
It's more of an event than a.
It really is, and
takes more intentionality
because it costs so much too. Unless you're going on a Tuesday night at Empire or whatever. But
then there's that guy. In a world.
They haven't done those trailers in about 15 years.
But still,
Don LaFontaine is no longer with us.
Yeah, I know.
The iconic voice.
In a world.
But there are others that are attempting to do it in their own way.
I will say about a movie that's coming out, Transformers.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the other day, and this is the first time I've ever seen it, and I think this guy's done the voice for Optimus Prime forever.
Oh, yeah.
I saw his face. There was like a video of him, and he was talking about the movie coming out, and he was talking about doing Optimus's voice for all these years.
I don't know who that is. Does it look like somebody from The Office?
No, he's like an old dude, and I don't know, he just looks like some dude you go to church with that you never talk to or something. He's like that guy across the church. That's what he looks like. The dude across the church with a beard.
Who does do the voice?
He has that voice and stuff. But I've never, ever thought about the person who does the voice for Optimus Prime. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's really wild when you see the voice for the.
Well, it's cool.
He's got a mustache.
Yeah. Yeah, that's him.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. I've seen him before. I don't know him.
His name is Peter Cullen.
Okay.
But I think
he's like an older dude. He's got a mustache. And he's like wearing a suit in this picture. He's just like a normal dude.
Exactly. So the guy across the church, But,
well, isn't that funny how you put faces and kind of you imagine when you just hear a voice, you imagine what they look like, and sometimes it's totally different. I follow a person on, I think it's Instagram. I don't think, maybe TikTok. I can't remember, but she's a Foley artist. And she's it looks like, it's hard to tell on camera, but a petite woman in her maybe, 30s. But she does all this physical, of course, any kind of movie stuff behind the scenes. Yeah. I'm a nut for that. But, just watching her do it, it's not maybe what somebody might stereotypically think of who's doing it. It's just fascinating to me the way, because I've found that too, where I hear a voice and I envision a certain person. Mm-hmm. Turns out they may look totally different.
Yeah. Well, the people that get me are like, I follow a lot of voice artists, and a lot of them can do impressions, and like somebody that can like totally change their voice. Like
the guy who does the Patrick Stewart and the older British guy. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
I can't remember his name right now. He'll be reading an article, and then his daughter, whoever it is, tells him to change his voice, and he reads it in a different voice.
Okay, so that brings up a lot of British actors can do non-script kind of American voices.
Yes.
But why can't Americans do British voices very good?
Some of them can.
Who
can, but
Who does that?
Well, the one that comes to my head is Dan Stevens. He's American, but he played in Downton Abbey.
Right.
He was, what was his name? Matthew.
Right.
Yeah.
In Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And he was able to do a really good British accent.
He was
like
the Beast
House.
from Beauty and the Beast.
House.
Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie. I mean, there's a bunch of them.
Here's one. Charlie Cox. The guy that plays Daredevil in the Marvel series.
Oh.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet him a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
And
you did.
I ran into him getting coffee. Me and Daredevil, we got coffee
thanks
together.
Thanks to your daughter.
Yeah, thanks to Autumn. She gets, she's helping me out a lot. It's like taking a puppy to the park. But I turned around in line, and it was Daredevil, and he started talking, and it was a very British accent, and I was like, It took me a second because I was like, he has a flawless American accent in the show.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So instead of going to the movie, she helps you meet
movie stars.
Movie stars, yeah.
Excellent.
Are they called movie stars still?
I don't know. You sure?
They're not called film stars anymore, are they?
Old people call them that still.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not films.
They're
pictures.
Yeah.
Moving picture.
I did that picture.
I did that moving picture.
I think we're going back in time now.
So let's see, Patrick, have you recovered from your beach trip?
I
Still sand in various places?
You know how it goes. That it's like you go on vacation, and when you get back, you need to take a vacation to recuperate from your vacation.
Yep.
I think that's kind of how I feel.
I know all about that. Especially when there's youngsters involved. You just seem to really go.
You pretty much have to assume you'll never get it out of your vehicle, though.
Yeah.
Sand's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
Sand is everywhere. It's rough and coarse and irritating.
Yeah.
And it gets everywhere.
And then, Glenn, you've recovered from your sermon. Well, none of us have.
Yeah.
You laid it on pretty hard there.
Yeah. So
We're all feeling very convicted still.
And encouraged.
But what I want to know is, I showed a picture in the sermon that, I used to play for Dairy Queen, played baseball for Dairy Queen. And old black and white picture, doctored it up a little bit. So
because there was no color back in those days.
Yeah. But yeah,
everything, the sky was gray.
Yeah, color hadn't been invented yet.
Old MVP there. I will never forget that day I threw the Frisbee up on my house. And my dad just kind of tosses me on top of the house. And, great. Everything's fine until it's time to come back down. And he says, jump. And I'm like, are you crazy? We're not jumping off the house at this age. I was like 9 years old. So, I've thought of that story. I've told that story a billion times.
I've heard you
in my life. Tell that story, but it's just so foundational to me about our faith journey and having that relationship. I totally get it when Jesus says you need to be like children to inherit the kingdom of God. Because, he's going to ask us to jump. And we're going to have to answer that call one day. So for me, it's always been kind of a fun story. But yeah, 9-year-old Glenn's always a fun thing to see on the screen. So
as if you're not still around. 9-year-old Glenn's still in this room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we can say I see 9-year-old Glenn all the time.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we don't ever kill him off. That'll be bad.
Young at heart. So
yeah, been a good. I always enjoy getting the opportunity to do that. Well, we have kind of one of our church leaders in here with us today, coming in, Bill Ragon, who is in charge of our board of lay elders, and he works with Samaritan's person. We've had him in before, but we always enjoy having him in because since we've had him in, he's been on several more trips. And he has great stories.
Always,
really has a great heart to serve in difficult places that most people would be like, nah, y'all just, there's somebody else will do that. He's like, I'm not volunteering, somebody else will do that. Well, Bill has that heart where he's like, you're asking, I'm going. So we do appreciate him in so many ways. So
the thing I love about him is he's a real guy.
Yeah.
We recorded the interview a little while ago, but I remember asking or kind of saying, you seem so heroic to so many people.
Yeah.
Just because he does and feels called to do things that most of us wouldn't even dream of doing.
Go to places that...
And that is so not what he thinks about.
Yeah.
And he's just a very real guy that I'm sure struggles with many things, but he has followed God's call, and that's impressive and good lesson for all of us. So I always enjoy when he comes in.
Yeah, me too. So let's flip it on over and spend a little time with Bill. We're here with Bill Ragon. Welcome again. As you can tell, we really haven't done much with the room since you were here last. But that's all right. So, Bill serves as our chairperson. Is it chairperson for the board of ordained elders, board of lay elders, ordained elders?
Wow,
we'll get there eventually.
I'm going way back in the memory banks for that one.
There's talk about that.
Way back in the memory bank. You've been traveling a little bit with Samaritan's person. We'll talk about that too. So how are you?
Good.
Good deal. I know y'all been busy looking for preachers and doing all kinds of stuff y'all do.
Yeah, it's been a busy 6 months. seems like we get one wall knocked down and there's some more that come bubbling up that we have to get taken care of before we can move on to get a pastor. So.
Well, I think it's just part of it nowadays. One of the things I've hearing friends that are, of course, we were looking for a youth person too, and hearing this all over is they're not hanging on every tree. So that's the thing is it's not like it used to be where it was just people wanted to jump up and work at the church, and a lot of young people that going into ministry don't want the liability. They don't want to, unless they're starting their own church. And now you're doing a church plant, they'll knock you down trying to get in line to do that. But
I read an article just today that the boomers pastors are retiring, and there's nobody behind them stepping up in their place. There's a huge shortage of young people. Not choosing the ministry. Yeah,
there's some of that for sure. And it's Generation Xers. Well, we're not real sure what we're doing. We're still waiting to grow up. We're still waiting for mom and dad to bring the keys home so we can, we're missing the good old days from where we could ride around and have a good time. But, it's funny. I love to watch that on all this different socials, the battle of the generations. It cracks me up. So everybody thinks they know what the other generations are doing, and it's fun to listen to them. So you went to Ukraine.
I did.
With Samaritan first, and then Turkey, and then Ethiopia. So let's go back to Ukraine first and tell us a little bit about what you did in Ukraine.
Well, we flew from here to Poland, got on a train, and rode for 21 hours across Ukraine to the western side. We were in a town that had been occupied by the Russians and had been freed by the Ukrainians about 3 or 4 weeks before we got there. And in Ukraine, there's 288 hospitals. Every one of them has been struck by a missile. And 88 of them are totally damaged and inhabitable. In this town of Izium, where we were, the hospital is totally destroyed. So sPurse went in, found a 3-story building that they set up a hospital in. The living quarters were down in the basement, which was our safe bomb shelter. Then we had ER, surgery, and then the floor. And then the third floor was the area where we had our meals and devotions and stuff. And so we had we're the only hospital there. It was a town of 50,000 people, probably about 15,000 all that were left.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is that the Russians still controlled the media there.
Oh, really?
And so what they told the Ukrainians were that they were leaving to go to another area, but they're now part of Russia. So when Samaritan gets invited in by one of the evangelical churches, they're saying, so who are you? What are you doing here? And why are you here? I thought we were part of Russia now. So it was quite an education from the churches to explain who we were and what we were. But it was terrible. The town, there wasn't a building that wasn't destroyed. I mean, apartment buildings, every window was blown out. You'd get up on top and look out of the city and see maybe 10 or 12 lights at night. And it was just kind of heartbreaking.
There's nothing even more eerie than being in a city that's, it's dark. With no lights or only a few, it's like after the tornadoes here, different times they've been and you're going through and you see damage, but yet you really can't see it that well until daytime. And many of the pictures I've seen out of Ukraine is every building is messed up.
It's just terrible. So I was there, and we had an orthopedic surgeon and general surgery, we had an ICU. We had a real busy ER and clinic, seeing people coming in there with all kinds of stuff. Took care of one guy that lived in his basement for a month and never came out. And it was quite interesting, his story. But anyway, I was there for about a week, and then they moved me to about 2 miles from the front from the fighting. We set up a mobile surgical base. Mainly, it was more like a MASH unit, where we would treat combat wounded soldiers, stabilize them, and then ship them on to other hospitals. There were 3 hospitals within 20, 30, and 50 miles of us. But even though we were that close, a lot of times they would have been injured an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours by the time they got to us.
Oh, wow.
And so we just did some stabilizing things, with open fractures, and did a couple colon surgeries and put in chest tubes, stabilized the bleeding, and ship them on. We set up in a half basement of a pre-Cold War school that was 4 stories high Walls were 36 inches thick. And it had been hit by 2 missiles, but the missiles had landed in the back, kind of in the back parking lot. And so we went in and sandbagged the windows, 3 layers out, 2 layers in. We had one OR, about 8 or 9 ER beds that we triaged and shipped out.
Yeah.
We were very busy. We had a Ukrainian surgeon and anesthesiologist that joined us after about 2 or 3 days, and he was in charge of the healthcare for whole brigade. And so he were basically trying to do the same thing we did, but in a mobile setting, and it's just impossible in an ambulance to operate on people and move people and transport. So having that facility kind of helped facilitate them. So we were seeing 20, 30 a day a lot of times.
Wow. So when y'all go in, y'all identify with the local churches. That's
Correct.
really how Samaritan's Purse works through the local churches.
Yeah, Samaritan's Purse has a country office, they call them, and the churches usually invite SPN, but they still go through the political side, to the government side, the military side, and as well as the evangelical or the Christian side.
Yeah. Yeah, I was recently in the DR in Mission of Hope, and they're working in the Dominican and in Haiti still, but, they work through the local church.
Yeah.
And they're like Samaritan's Purse and stuff where, a lot of times they're called into, the guy I was with who was kind of leading our thing. He said at one point around Haiti, he looked around, he said it was all military people and me. And he said everybody was puzzled about why I was there. One of the high ranking guys said, because he knows how to get this done better than the rest of us. And they were asking him, what's your secret sauce? Does it work through the local church? He said, just making those relationships and connections.
And you know how all that started? Through the Christmas boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Christmas boxes, things like that.
That's developed relationships all over the world. And they ship out, I don't know, 1 million every year, but they never go to the same place twice. And what it's done, it's just developed relationship with the churches.
Yeah.
And so when something like this happens, they know about SP and they invite them in.
And next you went to Turkey. What's the difference between Ukraine, where there's war, there's an active, I know Turkey's not the safest place on the planet, and Turkey be more of a natural disaster kind of situation. What's the difference between those two settings, besides the types of injuries? Maybe even some of those may be the same.
Interesting, the big thing, 7 days after I left, our clinic got hit by 2 missiles. And dead center, fortunately. If it had been in the front or the back, it probably would have killed 15, 20 people. So they left, and SPs wanted to go back because in every war, non-government organizations and healthcare have been a very strategic part in helping the civilian people with healthcare. And so Samaritan's Purse is trying to find their spot in Ukraine to do that. But Ukraine, fortunately, has got a pretty good healthcare system.
Yeah.
And they want to take care of their own people.
Sure.
And I can understand that. And so SP still hadn't found that niche in Ukraine. But Samaritan's Purse does well with disaster relief. Doing combat, we did it years ago in Iraq, but doing combat care is different than doing disaster relief.
Yeah.
Now, Turkey was interesting because we were put in a very restrictive environment. When we came in, the churches invited us in. There's a church there, a real strong church. It's got many, many branches in the area. They brought us in, and they kind of helped support us on the ground. But being a strict Muslim country, we could not carry our Bibles around publicly. We could not pray out loud, and we could not sing during devotions. And they had people on the ground watching us.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, the director of the emergency medicine for the whole country stayed with us for a week to see how we did. And there were several times it came close to being shut down because somebody would pray for a patient publicly.
Yeah.
And so even though we were the only hospital in Ethopia, Turks had one set up about 2 weeks after we got set up. But we're the only ones there because all the hospitals have been destroyed.
Yeah.
And it started out with, 1 million people, 600,000 left. I mean, that's like the city of Memphis vacating.
Yeah.
Because there was no place to go. And so the people left. We're the only ones there for healthcare.
Wow.
And it stretched, the damage went 70, 80 miles north of us, and everything was just totally flat. And so we were very, very busy. We had 2 ORs, orthopedic surgeon, general surgeon, several ER docs and stuff, nurses. And we had a 52-bed ward set up and did a lot.
Yeah, I imagine. So a lot of times of those you see what do you call it? crush type.
Yeah, we saw a lot of crush injuries, a lot of degloving injuries where they get trapped and then they pull their hand out and their skin pulls away. Yeah, a lot of burns.
Yeah.
We had one child that we took back every day for about 3 weeks, was standing by the stove and a pot of soup was on it. Mm. And the pot of soup fell over and burned her left side and her whole left leg. And we were preparing her for skin grafts. And we were basically taking her back every day and had to put her to sleep because she couldn't tolerate the dressing change without it.
Wow.
And so it was a lot of that, a lot of dressing change stuff that you just waiting for the graft time to graft them. But we did a lot of trauma, a lot of broken bones. Had a couple of colon that were ruptured from the stuff falling on them. And things like that.
Yeah. And then to Ethiopia, which was your latest trip, right?
Right.
So, so what did you do in Ethiopia?
Well, Ethiopia in Sodo follows under the World Medical Mission, which sPurse has 150 missionary hospitals throughout the world that they sponsor. And there was a surgeon here, Dr. Tim Love, who is the chief of the residency program there. Mm. They have a residency program called PACS to train African surgeons in orthopedics, OBGYN, and general surgery. Mm. And so when they finish med school, they apply to these programs. And they're Christ-based. They have an extensive Bible study every Thursday. They have to speak English. A lot of them have to learn that as they kind of perfect it as they go.
Yeah.
And it's very well funded. It's supported by a group out of Indiana. But in the town of 1 million something people, it's probably the most well-supplied hospital there. Oh, wow. And they did everything from, deliver babies, C-sections, and had 9 international missionaries there from OBGYN. Had some from Alabama, had a plastic surgeon from Germany. I think they have 3 or 4 residents a year for in a 5-year program. And they have to serve in an unserved area when they get out of their residency program.
When y'all pull up, who else pulls up beside you from around the world? I mean, is there any other agencies? I know there's a few others from the U.S., USAID, different ones, but are there others that are pulling up beside you saying, we're from here? And
once we kind of get going and set up, people start coming in. We had a lot of Turkish doctors come see us because they wanted to work there if they had to. Mm-hmm. And, we'd let them. We're not restrictive at all. This time, though, USAID came in, and they were going to set up a hospital beside us, a little bigger than what we had. And this cost SP, I think, $3 million to get set up and started. Mm. And USAID gave them $2 million for it. We were in the parking lot of a 1,100-bed hospital that was 3 years old.
Oh, goodness.
And 7 floors had collapsed inside.
Wow.
And so it was all going to have to come down.
Yeah.
And 10 days after we got there on a Monday, we had a 6.8 earthquake. Wow. And I'm telling you guys, that was...
Felt that one?
Yeah. We had a lot of tremors that were 3, 4s, and 5s, but that 6.8, you could not stand up. Mm. And everything that we had, shelving, all our instruments all fell down.
Yeah.
And it had a big crack in it.
Oh, wow.
A new crack in the hospital. And so it was kind of concerned about it falling over. And so USAID decided to set up by another hospital, another area of town. But they was going to take them like 3 or 4 weeks to get set up, where we were up and going within 48 hours.
Yeah.
By the time we got in there, everybody got on the ground, put tents up, had everything ready. Within 48 hours, we were seeing patients.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, so many questions come to mind. We've heard you talk before, and I think, myself included, a lot of people look at you and say, he's the hero.
Yeah.
I know your heart, and I know that that's not reason you do it, obviously, but it takes a certain kind of person and temperament to do what you do. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your heart with that, because I know you've shared it with us before, but it's a calling.
Yeah.
To go in there knowing, like you said, the week you left, there was missile strike, knowing that potential for danger is there at any moment. Now, I would imagine as a medical professional, you're somewhat prepared for medical emergencies, right? You've been able to develop a way to deal with those kinds of things, but this seems like it's really a lot different than that. Yeah. And for people that haven't experienced that before, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to be in that environment. I don't know if you can explain it or share a little bit about that, but that's something that always touches me, because it's one thing to go into a danger area, but you keep doing it. God keeps calling you to do it. And I appreciate that about you. So
thank you. Well, first of all, I'm not a hero. I'm just answering the call. And I don't want to be a hero. I've always felt that my anesthesia was my ministry. And that God called me into that. And there's been many instances in my career that God had me there for the right time, the right place. And of course, I've got a pretty good, strong military background, even though it wasn't in a war zone, but I was still highly trained as a Green Beret medic. So I kind of had that background to go into this, which kind of prepared me better for others.
Right.
Now, we were in Ukraine, the artillery was set up behind us. So the artillery fire was flying over our heads 24/7.
Wow.
Every day. And we had 3 missiles that landed, anti-aircraft missiles that they used to knock down 3 drones. They use a random, 10 or 20 rockets that they fire up.
Yeah.
And they got to land somewhere.
Right.
So we had 2 or 3 land within 300 or 400 yards of us. And it was very obvious what was incoming and what was outgoing.
Yeah.
Because the incoming, they rattled us big, and we go, okay, is that good guys or bad guys? And SP's got a really strong support security system that was really keeping in touch of where they were going, because the major center was only 15, 20 miles away where they were fighting. So we were kind of in the thick of things, and it was neat to show God to people, It was interesting. There was one guy that I kind of really befriended a lot, and he was an accountant and had been conscripted as a drone pilot. And he was on the front lines and within 2 kilometers inside flying a drone, and they got hit with some artillery rounds, and his 2 buddies 10 meters away both got vaporized.
Wow.
And he caught some shrapnel in his hip, and it kind of went down and may have gotten his sciatic nerve or femoral nerve. So he was kind of limping, couldn't walk. So they brought him in, and on the ambulance, he said, I've heard a lot of good things about you guys. He said, I speak English. My wife spent a year in Philadelphia as the exchange student. She taught my son and I English. But you'll take care of me because I'm an atheist anyway, won't you? And we said, yeah. And so we brought him in and cleaned him out, x-rayed him best we could, and we're going to ship him on to some place where he get MRI to see exactly what his injuries were. And so everybody else had gone to lunch, and I said, well, I'll sit with him. And so we were just talking, and he'd been prayed for twice by this time. And I said, so what do you think about your little incident there? And he told me, he said, I'm thinking maybe there's some reason that I didn't get vaporized with my mates. He said, so where are you from? In the U.S. I said, Tennessee. He looked at me, and I said, Elvis Presley. So he started singing Elvis Presley's song. And he looked up and said, and Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
And so from then on out, when somebody wanted to know where I was from, I'd say Elvis Presley and Jack Daniels, and they know exactly where.
Yeah.
So anyway, I talked and kind of shared, and he said, I wanted to come to the United States sometimes and see it. And his wife was in Austria with their 4-year-old son. She was a teacher. And he said, so, thanks for taking care of me. I appreciate the conversation. And so he got ready to leave, and he looked at me and grabbed my hand and said, God bless you. God bless you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bill, you've been around and you've seen some devastation, and you've seen people at war, and you've seen all this stuff. What are some things that you do here at home to kind of help prepare yourself for that? And they tell us we're living on the big fault. The earthquake can get us anytime, that kind of thing. What are some of the things that you do kind of just you always keep like a flashlight with you or something? I mean, what are some of the precautions that you tend to take?
Well, yeah, I've always keep flashlights. I'm a Boy Scout at heart, so I'm always prepared for whatever that might
got a little kit made up.
Yeah, pretty much. And in Iraq and Turkey both, we had a go bag that had a set of clothes, medicines that we had kept with us at all times, because if we had another bad earthquake, which we did, that we had to evacuate, we could just grab it and go.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when they got hit with the missiles after I left, they left everything there except for what their go bags were.
Yeah. So you suggest people have essentials ready to go? Well,
yeah, I think you've always got to be prepared if utilities go out. I mean, we've had tornadoes and seen what that's done to us for 2 or 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of it's just a faith issue.
Yeah.
God's going to take care of me. I don't know my days.
Yeah.
He does. And I'm just going to answer the call, whatever he wants me to do, and go. And Fortunately, I got a great, loving wife that supports me.
Yeah.
She worries about me. I've got a son or two that really worries about me. One was not very happy with me going to Ukraine.
Yeah.
But he had some connections, and he says, we're watching you, but we can't come get you. So
your wife's one of our faithful listeners. She listens all the time.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's I mean, we were talking with Anna McGarrett not long ago in here, and I know all of us have seen her and visited with her. She was just talking about the rivers and things that are just boundaries. That if it's flooding, they lost 2 children trying to swim across it, And you've been in countries recently where there's war. Both things are very, very foreign to us in our daily lives. You've seen the pictures and videos, you remember when people, be shelling all night, and then the sun will come up and they'll walk out of their apartment or their house and they'll walk down and go into work or going to get what they're going to do something. I don't know what they're doing, and all of a sudden traffic starts flowing. Those are very, very foreign things to us here in Jackson, Tennessee. We are very blessed to live in a free land where that's not the case here, but a natural disaster is something that none of us can control, or be totally prepared for.
Well, one thing about the Ukrainians, there's, when it's different when you're fighting for your homeland.
Yeah.
We have never won a war where we've gone in countries and people fought for their homeland. Vietnam, Afghanistan, not in Iraq as much, but particularly in Afghanistan, Korea, for instance. And these people, when they're fighting for their homes, that makes a difference. And you have a lot of resiliency to it that you don't normally see.
Yeah.
And I think we'd have it here if somebody tried to invade our country.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But we haven't been asked to ever do that.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So
one of the things that I was thinking about, you mentioned early on in the western part in Ukraine when you were there, I often hear a lot about Russian propaganda. Obviously, the story you told there is that, they'd been liberated, and yet it was still, the story was, it's Russian. So from what you've seen either there, Turkey, anywhere else, what is the reality that we are not hearing?
Well, I think the amazing thing is that bothered us that were medically on the field was we had to give our cell phones and our Apple Watches and computers up in Kyiv because when the Russians had surrounded Kyiv initially, the Ukrainians defeated them because every time a Russian would pull up their phone to call their wife or get on Facebook, they would pinpoint their coordinates and put a missile in their laps. And so even though I called Jane one time from Kyiv, our IT guy says, now, if you get back home and you reset your phone 3 times, and if it still messes up, your phone's been compromised by the Russians.
Wow.
And I had to get a new phone because it just was all messed up. And so that was a big deal. And the communication was hard because they would jam our sat phones, jam everything we had. So communicating from where we were on the front, even 100 miles away, was almost impossible. And after they got hit with missiles, it was an hour and a half, 2 hours before they could get back where they could get radio to tell headquarters we evacuated because we got hit. So that was the biggest thing that was a real shock. And the same way happened in Turkey because we're so close to Syria. Mm-hmm. And being an NGO, Christian NGO, it really, some of the security people were very anxious about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to bring back the CB radio, Breaker 19.
Well, it was that we had several different kind of phones. We had sat phones, and they jammed all of them.
Yeah.
Every day. So you kind of feel isolated.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah, because we're used to being able to pick this up and contact anybody in the world. But both in Turkey and in Ukraine, we had to give our phones up.
That reminds me, this is in no way the same as that. But I remember I was in Nashville when the flood happened. And with all of the modern conveniences that we have and everything, cell service was out. Yeah. There was so much traffic, people trying to reach people. It was very surreal. And I liken it maybe a little bit to that, where when you were on the ground in the middle of it, you did not know what was going on. You could not tell what was actually true and not. If your electricity was out and you had no cell service, you only heard what the neighbor said, who heard from this person to that person. Like the game of telephone, how it changes from one person to the next. It was like a desert of information you couldn't figure out. I remember we tried to get out to go to a friend's house to stay because, the flooding was there. And we were told we should go one direction instead of the other one because the other was blocked. Well, it turns out the exact opposite was true.
Yeah.
So we had to go all the way around to get out. And it was a real eye-opener because I identified exactly in a war zone anyway where your communication is out. You just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's a really scary and isolating feeling, like you said.
Sure. And the thing is, too, they would use our cell phone
Yeah.
to pinpoint us, And the thing is, where we were, and we called it K9, is that there was a lot of pro-Russians in Western Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And they turned us in, basically, because it was hard intel. Well, the only thing we had in front of us was ambulances. We had no Red Cross. We didn't have SP signs anywhere. We just had these people occupying this school that's been left empty for 2 years. And people taking pictures. And so what they would do, they would send intel with their phones to somewhere, which would go back, and they'd come back and validate that intel. And then by the time it got back, it would be almost 20 days from the original thing. And that's when we got hit, 20 days after we got set up. Wow. And so, it was quite interesting.
In a situation like that, does SP, being aware of some of that stuff, do they think of some of these installations you said where you moved, do they think of them as being more temporary for security or safety reasons, or no?
Well, they first had hoped that we could keep that thing open for 90 days to help take care of wounded soldiers. And then after that kind of got damaged, they thought about having a mobile unit where we'd go set up in a house for 10 days and move and go someplace else.
Yeah.
So they can't pinpoint us as well. But that didn't turn out to be very feasible because you still have your network of ambulances that are coming to you. And so they really haven't worked that problem out. At first, I was going to be in a van with an OR in it, and we were going to operate in the van, set a tent up, operate in the OR, ship them out, and then move to someplace else.
Wow.
And that's still there, and they still want to have that kind of capability, but Ukraine's just there is no safe place in Ukraine from the Russians.
I remember in Haiti, we were there, and they were telling us the stories about, when the towers went down, cell towers and everything went down, they literally thought it was the second coming of Christ. People really thought it was the rapture because people literally just disappeared. Because like you said, you couldn't get any information anywhere off that island, or at least that side of the island. And they literally thought, so many of them, especially out in the country, well, even in the city, literally thought that Christ had come back and they had been left. And some of them were really distraught by that. It was such an interesting story to listen to them tell those stories and to talk about that. I was thinking again of the tornadoes here. Cell towers didn't work. ATM machines don't work.
Right.
Nothing works. So if you stop and think about it, everything that we really hold dear and true, like our phones and quick cash and able to pay for everything. Well, if electricity and all that's out, communication's out, none of that works unless you have a go bag with something ready to go. You're stuck on a log, dude.
It just shows you how, like when the flood hit New Orleans, people wandering around with grocery bags with their stuff, not knowing where to go or what to do. And, that's a good example. Everything was totally destroyed. Everything was shut down.
Yeah.
They had no plan, no idea. And we're fortunate, but it's something that's very real.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't predict when an earthquake's going to hit, really.
And I was thinking, it was fun to talk to some of the people we had some geographical engineers that were there with us from SP, kind of weighing things and seeing where we need to go and do. And it was interesting to talk to them. I said, okay, we're on the fault in West Tennessee. What happens if we have a 7.8, 8.2, two back-to-back within 2 hours? What's going to happen to West Tennessee? He said, it's going to look just like Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Haiti, when the earthquake hit, everything fell down.
Yeah.
But in Turkey, they had rebar. Everything was built the way it's supposed to have been built, and it still came down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure the bricks would fall off all our houses.
Yeah.
And some of them would be caving in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the horrible thing about Turkey, it happened at 4 a.m, so everybody was home asleep.
Yeah, which is a little bit scary to think about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, goodness, do you have any plans to, you have somewhere else you're planning to go soon? Or
No, not really. Taking Katie's group to the Gulf and then going to see Rob in Virginia Beach, but not.
If you're going to the Gulf, you better be careful. That's the wildest place you can go. Down there in the redneck Riviera.
That's right.
Better be careful.
Oh, no. I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. But no, I've got some training stuff to do with Samaritan's Purse and some things. They're having a summit for husband and wives of DART missionaries that have been medical people.
Yeah.
That they're getting together for a weekend to kind of for marriage seminar kind of thing. And
that'd be cool.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be in the fall for Jane to get an idea of what's going on from their perspective and hers too. So
good. Well, we appreciate you coming in every time you do. We always love to hear what you've been up to, what's been going on, because, you are an extension of us when you do that. So we do appreciate telling the stories. You're a good storyteller.
Got some stories to tell.
So So we do appreciate you doing that. And thanks for serving as our chairman of the board of lay elders, and we do appreciate that as well. We're not going to make it easy on y'all.
It's all right. We'll make it.
That's good.
It's we never had elders before. Until we left.
All new.
And at first we had no idea what we had to do.
Yeah.
And then after the last year and a half, we had to grow up real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're finally getting better in defining our role.
Yeah, we're not like a young giraffe with wobbly legs anymore. We can actually outrun a couple of lines, I think.
And, one thing we did this week was define who we are as a church, going forward.
Yeah.
Are we going to hold on to some Methodist traditions or not? Which ones we are going to hold on to or not?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? What do we want? And even though we've kind of done the surveys, but as far as making a statement as the leadership of the church, we've not done that.
Yeah.
So we were tasked doing that.
Cool. Will that be released soon or something?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, good. All right. Well, great. Well, thanks for coming by, Bill, and pray for you as you go out and serve us again. So thank you.
Appreciate that.
So do y'all have a go bag?
No, but I feel like I need one now.
It's called my toolbox.
I was going to say, what do you put in your go bag?
Well,
because he said they put the medication in the go bag.
Yeah, medications you take.
But I mean,
you need to have some prepared to go.
Like
clothes.
I don't have a ton of medications I'm supposed to be taking to. I don't have the same skill set that he does, so I feel like my go bag needs to have different things in it.
We have had periods where we do have something more like that, but right now I would say we probably don't.
Yeah,
we don't have water supplies, we don't have batteries and things like that. I have tools, but I don't think we're very prepared.
we go through spurts of water where I'll have some prepared kind of ready, and then like all of a sudden I find myself drinking. I was like, why am I doing this? So, but yeah, it's good to have a bag ready where you can grab and just go. Kind of a change of clothes. Yeah, you should be able to grab your important documents if you keep them at your house, or pretty quickly, or the ones you do keep at your house pretty quickly. You need to have cash somewhere. I mean, that's we learned that in the tornado because I'm telling you, if you don't, you won't have access to it. I mean, you don't have to have like $1 million or anything, but something to at least feed yourself for a day or two. And it don't take them long, probably a lot of times to get that stuff back up and going, or get you to where you can get to electricity and get it, but you won't have access to it.
And with
that's something to think about.
small bills, stuff like that you just don't think about until you need it, and then you don't have it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I need to do better.
Yeah, well, I think we all can be a little bit better prepared. I remember when the girls were younger, we would do the thing of meet at the mailbox if the house catches on fire and all that stuff. That was kind of our meet at the mailbox thing, or go to the next door neighbors and beat down their door until they, I even told them one time, the little old ladies that lived next to us, I said, just if their door's open, just go in and scream in your name. Say, hey, asking for them, because, don't be afraid to do that if you need to, so. Like
Bill said, best thing is to have a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
For scoutings, be prepared.
Be prepared, and
that'll help.
I do have faith, and the Lord will take care of us and all of that stuff, but we do need to be prepared to help others and ourselves occasionally. So,
for sure.
So, great stuff. I'm so glad that he does what he does for us. And like I said, he is an extension of the church when he does that. So keep after it. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely look him up, give him a message, because I know he would love to see more people get involved in that way if you feel interested and called in doing that. I hope at some point, in the future that we are able to have at least a little bit of a disaster response team that's from here.
I know in the past there have been several folks from this congregation that have been a part of that when it was United Methodist. What was it? UMCOR?
Yeah,
it was
UMCOR, UMVIM.
Yep, and I don't know how many people are involved now, but there's definitely that need because we have disasters in our own country.
Sure. Yeah.
I was thinking that as we talked about stuff with him, from fires to, of course, when we have big hurricanes and floods and tornadoes and all that stuff. There's a core of people that, whether it's Red Cross or just other organizations like the United Methodist part, that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah,
and they're critical in those early response times. Years and years ago, I had a little bit of interaction with the Red Cross and got to understand a little bit about what they do, but they're mobile units that show up in a neighborhood that's been devastated with fresh food and water and pretty much anything that you might need. That's critical in those early days for sure.
I went to the United Methodist disaster relief training before, and some of those teams are prepared to self-sustain for 10 days.
Yeah.
And they have everything they need. There's another group, I love following them on Instagram. They're Operation Barbecue. And they're self-sustained. They go into these deals, but they serve barbecue to people so that people can eat, people that are affected, first responders, all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, that might be the team I need to be on.
Yeah.
So, you basically just run a food truck for however long you can be there. So, pretty cool stuff. But, well, Patrick, you're all rested up from vacation, so surely you ought to have a good list of things we need to be about.
We got a couple of things. This coming weekend, June 25th, Rockabilly's.
Hey!
Woohoo!
We're going to the ballpark, y'all. Take me out to the ball game. Yes, we're going to go see the Rockabilly's. Tickets are $10.
$10.
If you want to get a ticket, come on up here to the church. We got them. $10.
$10.
It's a 7:05 start time on June 25th. We're going to go as a church.
How long has it been since team played here?
A couple years.
Yeah.
It hadn't been a ton of
Maybe
time,
3.
but I haven't seen it since I've been back.
Yeah, this will be my first Rockabilly's game.
Yes.
Yeah, mine too. No, second Rockabilly's game.
Because I saw them when they were the Diamond Jacks, and I saw them when they were the Generals.
See, I never saw the Generals.
What is your favorite mascot that we've had here in Jackson out there?
I was a fan of the Diamond Jacks.
Was it just a baseball? Like a baseball-like guy?
Then he was like a big Pringles-looking can thing.
He was like a miner. He was like a pickaxe.
Oh, yeah. And was the one called Ribby?
Maybe, yeah.
Before that guy.
Yeah, oh, yeah, Ribby. I forgot about Ribby, yeah.
And Sarge the dog.
Sarge the dog, I remember him. That was with the Generals.
Yeah, that whole era.
It was interesting that they were called the Generals, but their mascot was Sarge. It was like a sergeant, not a general. I don't know.
Do you know what the goat's name is?
Billy?
JR. Jackson Rockabilly's. That's his name. JR.
Well, it's because he's a Billy Goat.
Yeah.
And Goat is the greatest of all time. And he's a rocking Billy Goat. Is that right? Rocking Billy
he has
Goat.
a guitar.
Rockabilly's, he's the rocking Billy Goat.
Rockabilly.
I'm trying to figure this out.
Rocking Billy.
I just think your granddad would be all over this.
Oh, he'd be so happy right now.
He'd be pumped up.
Yeah.
The deadline for the Educational Gift Fund is approaching quickly. That's July 1st. If you are a student in need of a scholarship for college or a trade school, then consider applying for the Educational Gift Fund. You can find more information on that on our website, northsidejackson.com/EGF, or find a link to that on our app under the Connect tab. Or you can just call up to the office or talk to Daphne. She's got hard copies up here. We can take care of that for you. Also coming up quickly is Food Truck Party, July 10th through the 14th. Yes, it's going to be a good old time. Also, remember, no Wednesday night activities during the month of July. Spend that time with your families or going on vacation, doing whatever you need to do. Just recuperate. We all need some downtime.
Yes, we do.
Well, we got some good interviews coming up, good podcast topics. It's been fun this summer so far.
Yeah.
Getting to hear from some new people that, we get to meet some new people.
Next week's going to be real fun.
Yes. So make sure you tune in next week. Tune in. That's such an old word, isn't it?
Tune in.
Tune your radios, too. Don't move that dial.
That's right.
Make sure that you write in for your code breaking apparatus that we will send you.
Dakota ring.
Dakota. And if you're a big time listener and you'd like to join in studio.
Yep. As always, we're welcoming any topics. If you want to be hearing about a particular topic, or you want us to talk to someone in particular, authors, movie stars, like people meet in the grocery store,
astronauts,
lots of things. We'll give it a shot and see.
That would be cool.
Submarine captains. If anyone knows a submarine captain, that'd be cool.
A sponge at the bottom of the ocean.
We could probably make that happen, actually. Would be kind of cool if they were on the submarine while we were talking to them.
That would be cool.
Get on that, Glenn.
Yeah, you're my Navy connection.
That's right.
I was going to say, at a point in time in my life, I knew a couple we could have called, but I'm not real sure where they're at now.
Probably underwater.
Yeah, which continent and where.
Yeah, they're probably, I don't know, probably done now.
Anyway, there's lots more coming up, so keep following us and share with your friends.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me, and thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Patrick.
This is Glenn.
I'm Kevin.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.
Bye-bye.
No.